Welcome to another film breakdown. Today we have I said film breakdown. To another season preview, and today we have the Los Angeles Chargers. And in honor of the Chargers, I got a shirt of one of my favorite players ever, my childhood hero, or one of them at least, LaDainian Tomlinson. LaDainian Tomlinson was my guy, okay? He was basically every Charger fans guy back in the early to mid 2000s. Um, the Chargers are an interesting team. They are kind of in that year that I think is most comparable to the Texans year last year. I've got Carl here. Now the Texans last year were coming off of a playoff appearance and we're looking to take that next step. And I think that's where the Chargers are. I do think the Chargers may have the same fate as the Texans in terms of not taking that step forward and instead regressing, and I'll get into it in a little bit. But I think in terms of the overall outlook for the future as a whole, it's getting brighter, I think. Now, I don't want to focus in on the future and the big picture with the Chargers because these are 2025 season previews. So I'm going to focus on this year and what I think is going to happen this year. And first, we got to start with the quarterback position. Justin Herbert, in my opinion, talent-wise, top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think the problem with Justin Herbert has always been, his career coaches are Anthony Lynn, Brandon Staley, and now Jim Harbaugh, who I think is getting the best out of him in a system that maybe doesn't entirely rely too heavily on Justin Herbert, which may be a good thing. Herbert did have his issues in the postseason game. I'm not denying that. But to say that that one bad game is reason for him to not be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL is just ridiculous. He's, in my opinion, talent-wise, top 5, but I'd be comfortable with him anywhere 7 or better. And his weapons got better this offseason. Last year, he was throwing to Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston and Hayden Hurst. In a surprising move, they didn't really change the tight end room. The primary tight end is now Will Dissly, who was on the team last year. I think he's a solid, 500-yard guy. You did add through free agency Tyler Conklin, and then you drafted Arondé Gadsden out of Syracuse, a wide receiver turned tight end. And I really like Gadsden, actually. He's got a lot of impressive tape, and he's done well through training camp thus far. And then at the wide receiver position for weapons, you draft Trey Harris in the second round. You bring back Keenan Allen, and then you have Ladd McConkey as your slot guy. Now, Keenan Allen is getting to Kelvin Benjamin territory in terms of movement ability, but I think his presence alone is valuable in that locker room. He doesn't even need to be a top 4 wide receiver in this offense, in my opinion. Just his presence. He's going to raise the level of play of everyone else. It's also giving Quentin Johnston competition to, you've got to step it up or you're going to see yourself off the roster after, next season. Because now you have Trey Harris and Keenan Allen, who will certainly get reps over Quentin Johnston, and they have been. And then obviously Ladd McConkey is like your perennial Pro Bowl guy. And I want to get into Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey had a great year, but I think he leads a wide receiver room in which there are a lot of unknowns, and the group as a whole is just so unknown. We have no clue what we're getting. Like, Ladd McConkey seems like a great hit, but how big of a hit is he? Is he a perennial all-pro? Is he a fringe top 10 receiver? Or is he, top 25 good but not great, and last year was a good year, and that's about, the best it gets? We don't know. I think we need a multi-year sample size to know about any player. And if Ladd puts on a show this year, then I think we know who we have. He has done nothing for me to suggest that he'll be anything but a great player, and I think he is a great player. It's just I don't think we can cement it that he is a really great player yet. He's played great, but I need a bigger sample size to be 100% sure. So I think the 3 primary wide receivers in this offense, when all healthy, that they're going to utilize is Ladd McConkey, Trey Harris, and Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, maybe not right away. he's maybe going to, and maybe not at all. Depending on how he's able to move, his age, he may need to, less reps. And that's where Quentin Johnson, I think, comes in and becomes that wide receiver three, and the opposite boundary receiver of Trey Harris. And that's fine. The problem with Quentin Johnson is that he was a first round pick, and we were trying to make him wide receiver one. And even as wide receiver two last year, he was better. Drops are still an issue. He's not like a 1,000 yard receiver, but he was better and productive, especially in a Jim Harbaugh offense. So being a wide receiver three or four for Quentin Johnson, I think is his role. And it's a first round pick. That's not what you want your first round pick to be, but he is in the depth chart where I think he belongs now. And then you have a training camp darling and a guy who dominated the Hall of Fame game. He just played his second preseason game, had 2 targets, no receptions. I'm not putting too much stock into it. I have to go back and watch the tape. Keandre Lambert Smith, out of Auburn by way of Penn State, has kicked ass this offseason. And his route running, aside from in 2025, aside from Lad McConkey, Keandre Lambert Smith is the best route runner on this team. And why I say 2025 is because Keenan Allen, was one of the greatest route runners of the generation, but he's lost a step. But Keandre Lambert Smith has really quick feet, and he's a really efficient mover. I like him a lot. And I think he could sneak into top three wide receiver on the roster by season's end. And I don't think this is just a situation in which we're saying, it's another like training camp darling that kind of falls off the face of the earth. No, this guy, they utilized a draft pick on him. It's not like he's a UDFA. And he has been lighting it up, and he's been getting some early run with this team. So he is a roster lock in my opinion, and not only that, he's working his way to some serious regular season reps. So I've talked about 5 wide receivers, and I think this team keeps 6, but the 5 are Keenan Allen, Trey Harris, Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnston, and Keandre Lambert Smith. I think those 5 are guarantees right now to make the opening night roster. And then the 6th wide receiver, you have to, I think, look at special team versatility. And it's between Jalen Reagor, Darius Davis, Brendan Rice, and Jalen Johnson. I think Des Fitzpatrick, Delavon Campbell, and Luke Grimm are all on the outside looking in. It's going to be Darius Davis. He's been on the team for a few seasons now, same draft class as Quentin Johnston, and he's been a decent returner for the team. So I think that he makes the team as the return man, and all the others are going to be practice squad players. In 2024, the Chargers had a great surprise with the emergence or reemergence of J.K. Dobbins. He was a fantastic player coming off of years of injuries. But the running game still wasn't where it needed to be, and besides J.K. Dobbins, there was no effective running back in the room. And they completely revamped the team. They spent a first round pick on a running back. I am a huge advocate for not doing that. But Amarian Hampton, I think, fits the bill in terms of a Harbaugh, Greg Roman type of offense. Gonna be ground and pound. He's a big boy, and he can move. And I'm really excited for him. And hopefully, a nice running attack can take the load off of the passing game and can make Herbert a bit more efficient and have to carry less of a burden on his own shoulders. And then they also signed Najee Harris, who I still don't love the fact that you pay Najee Harris what was it, 9 mil, and then you spend a first round pick on a running back. That feels like poor asset management, but that's why I'm not in Joe Ortiz's position. Uh, we'll see how it works. Najee Harris signed with the Chargers and immediately blew himself up. So we got to see if he's even going to be ready week 1. He hasn't gotten any training camp or preseason reps, so I don't even know if he'll be ready week 1. If not, Kamani Vidal, a 6th-round pick in 2024 out of Troy. He has experience with the team. I think once Gus Edwards kind of showed that he was not that guy last year, Kamani Vidal got more of a sample size. So I think for a couple weeks, if Najee Harris isn't ready to go to start the regular season, Kamani Vidal can be a serviceable backup. And then behind them, there's guys like Hassan Haskins, who I think is a Nepo signing from Jim Harbaugh's days in Michigan. I do not think he is a good NFL player. And then Jarrett Patterson, who has been around for a little bit. He's out of Buffalo. Go Bulls. Um, I think he could make the roster as the third back if Najee Harris isn't available. I also think they could roster Naeem Hines. And this could be interesting because Naeem Hines has return experience. And that brings us back to Darius Davis in the receiver room. Do they value Darius Davis' skill set enough as a receiver if they give the return spot to Naeem Hines? I think so because they already have big body receivers in the building, and so they don't need another Brendan Rice and Jalen Rager. I don't think is anything to write home about. So I think they could roster Naeem Hines and Darius Davis, but I don't know that they do. Now we get to the line, and this is going to be the most upsetting part of the video. Coming into the year, after the Mekhi Becton signing, the line was looking pretty fun. Now, Zion Johnson is a left guard first round selection from the Telesco era that has not panned out. And I think, he's had what, 3 years now? Usually I say after 3 years you know who a guy is. In that case, I would be comfortable calling Zion Johnson a bust in terms of first round picks. I think he's a quality depth player in terms of skills, like talent and skill ceiling, but he's a liability as a full time starter. And same with center Bradley Bozeman. I was really excited for Bradley Bozeman to come in last year and be one of the better centers in the game, a top 10 center at least. He is a huge liability. So, right up the gut, you have your center and your left guard as ginormous liabilities. And then you have your right guard being Mekhi Becton and your right tackle being Joe Alt. That's your right side's locked down. And then you have your left tackle being Rashawn Slater. That's a really good blindside blocker. And he really helps Zion Johnson look, even decent. Well, Rashawn Slater has an injury worse than an ACL tear, and that is a torn patellar tendon. And a study showed, I saw this, I can't remember from who, but a study showed that 79% of NFL players don't return to form statistically after that injury. Now, that may seem like common sense, but you're basically saying this is a career ender. And that's really sad. They just paid Rashawn Slater last month, like a massive record setting contract. And will they ever see Rashawn Slater play to his potential on that contract? Probably not. They're probably never going to get what they paid for. And I'm all for the players getting the money. So even as a Chargers fan, I'm a Bills fan first, but Chargers fan second. I'm happy for him because, I don't want to get into the personal side of it, but working so hard for that moment, imagine he hadn't got his payday yet and he lost out on all that money. You see it all the time. So I'm happy he was able to get his. But it does suck. It does suck for sure. Um, so now Joe Alt is going back to his natural position of left tackle, and Trey Pipkins, who has started before for the Chargers, 2019 third round pick, is coming in at right tackle. Trey Pipkins was really good in the 2021 season, but last year and the year before he was abysmal. So it's kind of like, well, you had that really good 2021, but that's really seeming like a flash in the pan now. And are you going to be a huge liability on the right side? If that's the case, I almost want to see Jamari Sallier, who I have liked in his starts for the Chargers, come in on the right side and play either right guard and have Mekhi Becton go to right tackle, or just have Sallier go to right tackle. I don't want the Trey Pipkins experience to last all season if he is clearly a liability. And then at center, they sign Andre James from Las Vegas. So the center battle is between Bozeman and James, and Bozeman's still getting the first team reps. So I mean, is Andre James just that bad? Because Bozeman was horrible. Anyways, let's move along to the defense. So the defense, they did lose Joey Bosa, which sounds terrible, but I mean, when was the last time? I mean, he played 14 games last year, but he's been very limited in recent years. And so they signed Deshaun Hand from Miami to kind of fill that edge space. And then on the other side, they have Tuli Tuipulotu, and the Chargers are they run a 3-4 defense most of the time, and they have those blitzing outside linebackers that come in a lot. So guys like Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu, Kyle Kennard, I'm excited to see. Bud Dupree, all these guys are going to be in that 2 point stance coming off the edge. But then you've got Deshaun Hand, Scott Matlock, Justin Aboigbe coming kind of hand in the dirt edge rusher or at the 3 or 5 tech. And then on the inside, you lose Poona Ford, and I think that is a much bigger loss than Joey Bosa. Poona Ford played so well last year, and now it's Tier Tart, Adito Agbanyo. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Naquan Jones out of Arizona, and Jamari Caldwell, who I think Jamari Caldwell could literally be a step for step perfect replacement for Poona Ford. He played very well in the Hall of Fame game, played well against the Saints. I could see him taking that starting nose tackle spot relatively quickly in terms of, a third round pick coming in. I like him. He's a big boy and he's got a lot of experience, was on a really good Oregon team. I mean, that Derek Harmon and Jamari Caldwell combination on the interior, I think will be talked about in years as in terms of like, wow, that was quite the pairing. So they've got a nice front. And like I talked about, Kyle Kennard, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, went in the fourth round. I'm excited for him to show what he's got. Khalil Mack, future Hall of Famer, Bud Dupree, Tremon Morris, brash. I'm not thrilled about, but I think he's got something there in terms of depth. But I think this front is nice. And then for the stand-up linebackers, you've got Diane Henley, who is quickly becoming one of the best Mike linebackers and off ball, or excuse me, not Mike linebackers, one of the best off ball linebackers in football in terms of coverage skills, ability to get into the backfield, just can really do it all. And then you have Denzel Perriman on the other side, who has really always played well as a member of the Chargers and did so last year. Got arrested a couple weeks ago, and Jim Harbaugh was at the Inglewood County Jail with him for like 17 hours or something crazy. But he's free now, I guess. And then behind them, I think is decent depth in Troy Dye and Junior Colson. Junior Colson, again, I hate to say it, feels like another Nepo signing or draftee in the Harbaugh regime. Um, he was Harbaugh's linebacker at Michigan, and he has just not been impressing me at all as a member of the Chargers. Cornerback and safety room is fun for me on this team. I want to start with the safeties because it's been the same safeties for a while now. Derwin James and Alohi Gilman. Um, Anyone remember what was his name? Nasir Adderley? Safety? What happened to him? Derwin James and Alohi Gilman. I think Alohi Gilman played decent last year. I still tend to think he's a bit of an athletic liability. I don't love his measurements or his tools. He just is a smart player, I think, so he survives. Derwin James, obviously a freak. I think he had kind of a bounce back year last year. He played a lot better last year than he has in years past, or not years past, but I guess he had a down year in 23. 24 was a nice bounce back, healthy version of Derwin, and he really was effective. And then in depth in the safety room, you have Elijah Molden and Tony Jefferson. Tony Jefferson, Unc, what are you doing still playing? I mean, he was playing meaningful snaps in the Hall of Fame game. Dude, you are 38 years old or something like that. Relax. Elijah Molden, I think, is solid depth. And then you draft R.J. Mickens out of Clemson. He was a top 150 player for me. He's a bit small, so that's something to keep in mind. But I think he's a ball hawk, and he has been impressing in training camp. Then the cornerback room. My two favorite corners on this team are fifth round picks from the 2024 draft. And these, in my opinion, I mean, Ortiz really knocked the 2024 draft out of the park with, I mean, he's got what, four starters on the team from the 2024 draft in McConkey, Alt, and then Hart and Tarheeb Still. Really solid draft. Um, Tarheeb Still, I mean, he had one of the best corner seasons as a whole in the entire NFL last year. And Cam Hart, when healthy, was really good. So I think Tareeb still has that nickel guarding the slot receiver really good, but I think he can also play boundary. I think he's really versatile, but I think he will be this team's nickel corner this year. And then Cam Hart will be on the outside and Dante Jackson on the other. Dante Jackson did get banged up in the same practice that Rashawn Slater got hurt. I don't know the extent of the injury. I'll have to look into that. And then depth, you have Nico Reed, who had that really nice pick and return in the Hall of Fame game, and Benjamin St. Juste. I was expecting Benjamin St. Juste to make this roster and relatively comfortably. And by the looks of it, it is not looking that way. I'm now slightly unconfident that he even makes the roster. Because right now he's showing as third in the depth chart in terms of right side corner. And he's, in terms of total corners, he's fifth on the depth chart. And he's behind Nico Reed. So, I mean, as an Oregon fan, I would love for Nico Reed to make the roster, but Benjamin St. Juste, you kind of were relying on him to be one of the meaningful signings. And then you also have Triqueze Bridges, who you drafted in the seventh round. I don't think he's going to make the roster. He was getting burned all training camp. I don't have confidence that he'll make the roster, but maybe they want to look at him instead of Dean Leonard. So who knows? Overall, I think it's a fun roster. Despite losing Rashawn Slater, I do think they can make the playoffs. So let's take a look at their schedule and predict their record. So they actually start the season, they get robbed of their home game against the Chiefs, and they have to play in Brazil. The games in countries where, you know, it's a little bit dangerous for the players, both on the field in terms of field conditions and, you know, outside of the stadium just trying to live, they should not happen. But that's besides the point. They play the Chiefs Friday, September 5th. And then they come back home, and the following, not the very next Monday, but the Monday after that, week two, they travel to Las Vegas to play the Raiders. And then they host the Broncos the following week, and then travel across country to face the Giants. Unfortunately, this feels like a lot of travel. You are going down to Brazil, coming back up, then going to Las Vegas, then going home, playing Denver, and then going all the way across the country to face the Giants. I'm going to say that the Chargers start the season 2-2. Actually, I'm going to say 3-1. I'm going to say 3-1, and they lose to the Chiefs probably. I could see them sneaking a win against the Chiefs. I could also see them losing that and losing to the Broncos, but I'm going to say they split with the Broncos and they win their home game. Just makes the most sense to me. So I'll say they start 3-1. Week 5, they host the Commanders before going to South Beach to play the Dolphins in Week 6. And then Week 7 and 8, they play the Colts and the Vikings at home. I honestly like their odds in all of these games. There has been no resolution with McLaurin and Washington, and I don't love Washington's defense. And then Washington's offense without McLaurin last year. So, I mean, Deebo Samuel is not, is not really tickling my fancy in the big 2025. So if they don't have McLaurin by week 5, I think this is an easy win for the Chargers. And then you have at Dolphins, who all-time bad vibes this offseason, and then hosting the Colts and the Vikings. They'll probably drop a game somewhere, so I'll go 3-1. And then you have in Tennessee to play the Titans, hosting the Steelers on Monday Night Football, or Sunday Night Football, excuse me. Traveling to Jacksonville before a Week 12 bye, and then hosting the Raiders. I feel like this is an easy stretch. I'm going to go 3-1. One of Steelers, Jaguars, or Raiders they lose to. I could see them splitting with the Raiders, which is why I say that, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they swept the Raiders. Here's a tough stretch. Here's where it all goes to shit. Uh, Monday night hosting the Eagles. Week 15 at Kansas City in the cold. Week 16 at Dallas. Week 17 and week 17 hosting the Texans, then week 18 at the Broncos. So I gave them the win against the Broncos the first time, so I'm going to give them an L. And then I say they go 1-1 against the Cowboys and the Texans. And then do they split with a game? Do they go 1-1 against the Eagles and the Chiefs? I don't see that very likely. I think they probably lose both, so I'm going to go 1-4. I have the Los Angeles Chargers finishing the 2025 season with a record of 10-7, which it's a step down from last year, and it's probably disappointing, but the loss of Rashawn Slater I think is so huge. And I don't think Amarian Hampton is going to get going like we want him to without that left side being shored up. And well, it'll be shored up with Joe Alt, but now the right side. I was looking forward to right side runs, and now it's Trey Pipkins, and I just don't trust that. So a tentative 10-7. I think their ceiling is 12. I think their floor is probably 9. So I went with 10. They have a really easy first 3/4 of the season, and that week 14 and beyond is going to be a test. And it's going to be a test of not only who they are, but also luck. Are they healthy at that point? Are their opponents healthy? What are the dynamics in terms of, week 17 and 18? Do the Texans and Broncos have something to play for? Or are they going to be resting guys? Or are guys going to be sitting out because their season's over and they don't want to get hurt or something? Who knows? There's tons to think about. Week 16. Is Micah Parsons going to be even playing for the Cowboys at this point? If Micah Parsons isn't playing for the Cowboys, I'd be even more comfortable saying, hey, maybe the Chargers can squeeze 2 wins in week 16 and 17 against the Texas teams. But for now, I'm going to say they split. Not saying that they lose to the Cowboys, but. And then week 15, again on the road against the Chiefs. Chargers could split the season series with the Chiefs, but I don't see it happening, so I'm just going to hedge my bets and take the better team to win, and that's the Chiefs. And then Monday Night Football, do the Eagles have a Super Bowl hangover, or are they just as dominant as last year? Will they have any injuries? They just had Lander Dickerson go down and be carted off. So, I mean, all up in the air. It's very tentative right now, but I'll go 10-7. I don't know if that makes them a playoff team. They might be on the outside looking in. They might squeeze in as a 7 seed. We'll see. I appreciate you guys watching. We have one more AFC West team, or two more, excuse me. We have the Broncos and the Chiefs at the time of recording. I don't know if I'll post these in that order, but we'll see. So stay tuned. I'll try to bang these out as fast as possible. All right. Love you very much. Adios.